welcome back to my channel. I'm Linda, the scrapbooking photographer, and today I am taking part in the Mad About Minis YouTube hop, which I am using to construct this anniversary album for my husband. We are celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary in March 2025, so now I can say it's next year. So it is coming together. If you've been watching previous videos in this series, you'll know we've done some travel. We've had a Christmas and one new puppy. We've had a birthday, and we've been dressed up and gone out, and the last page is done, which just says cheers, or second to last page. So it's building up, and today I'm going into follow up this beginning of 2015. As you can see, this was split into two, so I'm going to have to do the same on this side. Sorry about the noise in the background. I'm having to do this while John is doing the lawns, so that he doesn't hear what I'm saying, because the album is a surprise. So I will stop recording if he comes too close to the house. But on this side I'm going to have a Christmas tree, and I'll use a flip flap here to incorporate some hidden journaling. Because 2015 was an interesting year. We had been married for 30 years, so that's our 30th wedding anniversary cake and bubbles. So I thought I'd put that in the top half on the left-hand page. And then in our wisdom, we decided to sell our beautiful house and move into the city. I'm going to do something with that down here. And then we ended up with about 10 days where we didn't have a home. That didn't sit well with me. We decided to go to Sydney for a week. Dogs are in kennels, animals looked after, etc. And I was sick just about the whole time. So I'm obviously I need to have a home and have my things around me. So anyway, I can hear the mower coming a bit closer, so I'll stop talking now and do a voiceover later when I can, but I'll start putting this together. Enjoy. What I didn't mention in the introduction was that, as well as the Mad About Minis layout, I'm also fitting in the criteria for the mixed Media Mayhem in this layout, and as well as the Iron Crafter challenge. So the mixed Media Mayhem has 3 components, and one of them is torn paper. And I thought it would work really well behind this picture that I've got of us in front of the big Christmas tree in the mall that we found at Sydney. We got somebody else to use our camera or use our phone and take a photo of us in front of this giant Christmas tree. It seemed to go on and on forever. So anyway, I want to put a little bit of glitter on top of these paper strips, and I'm just at the moment getting the colour scheme right. So I have put a bit of blue in there because I know there's going to be blue on the left-hand page. And as luck would have it, John's wearing a blue shirt, so it kind of fits anyway. And then I've gone for some pine green and some scarlet. Now the blue at the bottom is going all the way across because that's going to be the base of the page, but the photo should fit up the middle, so I'm able to use scraps really for these other bits that are going to just poke out each side of the photo, but I do want them to be relatively even. So I'm just checking there that everything looks okay. And just before I zip to the end of this, I'll just show you putting in a little bit of white. Now it looks a bit odd against the white page behind it, but you'll see at the end that it just helps to bring out a little bit of white that's also going to be showing on the left-hand side. So here I am at the top, and I'm finishing the top with a blue as well, with the sapphire, and just tucking a little bit of white in below. So I've put the top one in to come down so I get that continuous torn look going up. Then I notice that actually I need the white to go all the way across because the photo is taller than I had given it credit for. And I've also got the flip flap to go in there as well, so hopefully this piece will be enough, but I'll just tuck that in there going all the way across, and that should work well for the photo when it goes in over the top. So another try, yep, that works there, so that's all good. So then I can turn this over and trim all those bits off. Sydney's great, any big city is great at Christmas time because there's just so much to see, isn't there? We live in a little country town, so it's not quite as dressed up as some of the big cities with all the lights. And we met some very dear friends there too, and had a good few days, except that I was unwell for most of it. Anyway, so onto my splatter box goes this page, and I'm just using some Glint gloss spray to tap over the top to give a little bit of shine to it, and I'll put some shimmer pen on there as well. Now this also satisfies, hopefully, the wet media aspect of the Mixed Media Mayhem prompts for this week as well, but I'll also add a bit more wet media on the left hand side too, so stay tuned for that. When you use the shimmer pens, it just pays to make sure that the ink has come right down to the end of the nib before you start flicking, and perhaps get rid of the big blob before you start. You can draw with them, but I just used it as a flick there. So I've popped that to one side to dry, and then I'm going to mount this photo in white, but it's a little bit wide, so I've trimmed it down just by taking a little bit off that right hand side, which actually centres the tree a little bit more also. You can see by the second photo how tall the tree was, and it's obviously not all going to fit in the photo, so I'm using a 4x4 flip flap. So the photo will just slip in here, and then it has a bit of a hinge on the top, so you can flick it up and put some journaling on the back. Now the flip flap fits a 4x4 piece, so I will put white card in there to match the other photo, and therefore have to trim down this little bit of tree to make it fit. So I can stick that together and then look at doing some stamping on the back with my journaling. Now stamping is our selected item for the Iron Crafter Challenge this month, and it also is one of the criteria for Mixed Media Mayhem this week. So I'm using a stamp that came out last year with Close to My Heart, and this Our Getaway was just perfect, and it's actually the right size and everything, so it's just the ideal one to stamp on the top. And I'm using just a black ink, and then I use another stamp from one of our older stamps of the month, where it's got a little frilly piece that I can use as a border down the bottom, and again it's just the perfect size to fit onto this 4x4 card. Off camera I'll do a little bit of journaling, and I'll just whiz around the outside of this with my foam dome and the black ink just to pretty it up a little bit. And then it's time to construct the page. So when I put the photo on, I see I need to bring it down a bit so that you can still see our faces underneath the flip flap, and that means there's a little gap at the top that I hadn't quite taken into consideration, but a sticker of "'Tis the Season" from one of the Christmas packs fills that gap very nicely. So there's never really a mistake with scrapbooking, is there? You can cover anything and make it look like it was meant to be. So I've popped that photo in. Now that whole page needs to go into its protector before I can add the flip flap. So I'll just slot that in there and put the photo into its flip flap. Now you need to make sure that you've got the sticky side facing up so that when you fold it over, it sticks onto the protector there. So then I'll take the little bit of covering off and put it in place. So you can see that that gives you the impression of the tree being tall, and you can lift it up, and there's a little bit of journaling about what we were doing there. So with that right hand side done, I can pop that to one side but use it to get an idea of how I'm going to work these other two pieces. Joining pages together like this, it's quite good to get some flow from one to the other. So I initially think I'm going to include some tea paper on that left hand bottom side and put some houses over the top. Now these houses come from the Memory Lane set, and I hadn't used them before, so I did season them before I stamped them. And I'll just do a couple of white ones, or a few white ones and a few red ones, and that'll just give me a bit of choice. And I think it's quite appropriate because we were homeless, so it's all about selling a house and waiting to move into the new house when it became free. So I fussy cut them out, and then when I line them up with the blue piece, it seems that they're taller anyway, so in the end I take the blue piece away and decide to get that continuity from one page to the other by cutting the house in half and just popping the other little piece on the right hand side. Given that we did an experiment at the beginning of the month on a different YouTube hop about stamping on a photo, I feel a bit more confident about putting a sold sign across the front lawn on this photo of our house that made it through to the real estate magazine. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it below, because it's not as daunting as what you think it might be. So I can pop that photo in there now that it's stamped on, and then I'll put these houses on top. Now I do start with red because I want the red one to be one that overlaps onto the right hand side. So I go red, white, and then attach the red and trim it off once it's attached, so that I've got exactly what I need to go onto the right hand side. It's always interesting seeing what others come up with in these YouTube hops, so make sure you follow the playlist below for both the Iron Crafter Challenge for stamping and the Mad About Minis to see what people are doing with their smaller pieces of paper. So I've got that there, and I think that's enough, and it brings the left hand side into the right, so it does help to get that continuity between the two sides. Now I'm just using my foam dome again to go around the outside of this, and that particularly gets rid of the white core that comes through on the red and also on the photo. So it just kind of combines everything and blends it together well. Now this one up the top, I'm also going to use some torn strips along there to get that continuity with that as well, but I do want to add a little bit more wet media because I don't feel like I've done enough to meet that criteria for the mixed Media Mayhem. So initially I'm using some Distress Oxide, but it isn't quite dark enough, so I bring in some candy apple and mix it round together, and that gives it just a little bit more vibrance. And just dipping the White Daisy cardstock into it, I can spread it around, makes a bit of a hot mess, and then I'll do it again because it hasn't quite got the amount of coverage that I want. And this time I'll add a bit of water to the candy apple just to make it a little bit more liquid, and then gradually soak it all up. Now this piece of card would bend if we did too much, but I think that gives enough of a redness to go with the rose on the cake and to blend in as a background for the torn paper that I bring across. So I will also add the glint sprinkles to this piece so that it also has that in common with the right hand page. It just makes the page a little bit more cohesive, and here comes the gold shimmer brush as well. So I can pop that to one side once that's all done. And while that's drying, I'll work on the torn strips. Now I do want these to line up with the ones on the right hand page because that's the whole point of getting that continuity going. So I've just chosen the scarlet and the candy apple pieces because that's the red again that goes with the what we've just done as the wet media, and also with the red on the cake. Now initially I make a stamp of March to fill in that, or just to go up the top of that photo in the top right hand corner. I mount it in white and put it all together to see what it looks like now that the background is dry. The scarlet's a little bit wide, so I just rip another piece off and see how that goes, which seems to line up a little better, not quite so overpowering, and then I'll put the candy apple in either side of it, so I can tear that in two really, and it will fit one each side. I hope you're enjoying watching this album come together. There's a new episode each month in this series, and if you're a subscriber with the little bell pushed, you'll get a notification each month or for each video that comes up, so you won't miss anything. This album in particular is following with the Mad About Minis episodes, and there's plenty of other YouTube hops and different techniques to watch along the way too if you're a subscriber. Now I've got that top left hand page almost finished. I'm putting on this March that I stamped a bit earlier, but I don't like it because it kind of makes it look like the whole page is about March, whereas in fact it's more about the year. So I get out the dainty script and re-stamp it with the year, and still in candy apple and still on the torn paper. So it has the same effect when I put it into the top right of that photo. So I'll make it the right size and then I can stick everything down. So just to recap, I've done everything for the Mad About Minis because I've used scraps and mini pads. I've done everything for Mixed Media Mayhem with the stamps, torn paper and the wet media. And stamps was our item for Iron Crafter, and I've used some of them in a variety of ways, including on a photo again. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, I can put all this together now. And to make it easier to thread into the protector, I've stuck the front side to the back side, so it's just one piece that I need to get in and they will sit evenly. So I'll pop those back in the album, and I'm really happy with the way they look together and with the little flip flap as well. I do hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to catching up with you next time. Happy crafting!